Welcome you guys to another watch party. It's Thursday here on the watch list. Glad you guys could show up. I see the nerds are filing into the building nice and early. I appreciate you guys. Listen, I need a little bit of self-indulgence here for a second. It's been like maybe been a solid month, bro. Maybe even longer than a month. I've been on time. I've not been 5 minutes late. Matter of fact, I've been 15 minutes early a couple times. Shit. Yesterday, I was an hour and a half early. I just, all I want is just a little bit of credit for no longer being the late guy here, but still having tons of things prepared because I stressed myself out. I want to make sure I have tons that we're going to talk about. I want to make sure I have many things that we're going to refer to you guys. What is that's going on in the world? So you don't have to just listen to me tell you it's happening, so that you can see the people that are doing it, the movers and the shakers and the assholes that keep doing it. Let them tell you what the hell is going on. So I just want to get that part out of the way. I'm no longer the late guy. Just, no longer late to the party. I show up early sometimes, bro. Actually, I want to point out to a few of you who were here yesterday for the whole marathon that was that marathon. I appreciate you. I don't know how to make sure whenever I have to jump in early like that to let folks know, but it was an important day. There was lots of people we had to hear directly. I wanted to hear fully what many of these survivors of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were saying, and the things that they wanted to have done. So we did the whole thing. Went damn near 2.5 hours yesterday. I feel like I'm still a little tired from it, even though I didn't do much talking during it, but still like taking it all in and then going straight to another hour, which I only like 70% prepared for because I didn't realize how long that thing would be. It was still very much necessary, I believe. So everybody who didn't get a chance to see much of it, try and find some of those moments that aren't just cut up by folks online that want to show you parts and pieces of it. Everything was put on display yesterday as we went through it, and the fallout actually continues. I mean, we went from like, we started with a couple sips of beer in the party, and then we moved on to shots. Shit, by the end of the 2.5 hours, we were doing keg stands and stuff. For those of you who went to party colleges like I did. Let's get started because there's fallout that is happening from it. There's responses to it. There's people that are finding themselves on each side of it that you may be surprised that you're finding them on. Let's start where Donald Trump was on Scott Jennings' show. In case you guys don't know who Scott Jennings is, of course you do. He's the guy who's always on CNN just for the sake of being the most smug a-hole in the room that's going to support anything that Donald Trump does. And, it pays off. It's beneficial for him because he went on his podcast and decided to give his case about why he's so mad. He's so upset at one Republican, Thomas Massie. Here's what he had to say.
So we have a thing that's happening, and I do bring a unity to the Republican Party. Do you know, almost every single person I've endorsed has won.
Yeah.
I can't think of anyone who hasn't. If I endorse a person, they win. And I do well in the elections, too. I don't want to put that down because with the Republican Party, it's like 399-0. Think of that. And many of those are insurgents, people that I like better. I didn't like a certain Republican. And, we like this guy, Massie. He's going to be taken out. He's no good. He never votes. He never votes for anything, It's like he's from Kentucky. He's always a no vote. It's like automatic. If it's good or bad, he thinks he gets publicity by voting now. We call him Rand Paul Jr. But it's terrible, some of these guys. So sometimes you have to take them out, and I do, and I win. So we have a thing.
Donald Trump thinks Thomas Massie should be taken out. He said it a couple times, actually. But this I want to hone in on a couple things really fast. He says he's always a no vote, as if he's supposed to be working for Donald Trump. Apparently, he's supposed to be representing the people that voted him in, but Thomas Massie's just a no vote for publicity. Publicity to who? If you're so damn popular and everybody that you mention wins elections, you can't think of anybody that lost because we've forgotten those people because they effing lost because you endorsed them. In fact, some people ran from your endorsement and said, I don't want anything to do with Donald Trump's endorsement. But of course, if they're in these deep red districts, which you're still trying to gerrymander into more of them, you're going to find you to act like you have all this success. But Thomas Massie needs to be taken out. He targets people and takes them out. I'm just saying, from the guy who apparently was shot in the ear, who's still fully intact ear, and who had another attempt on his life, it's weird that he likes to talk about taking people out politically. That is especially since two Democratic elected officials up in Minnesota, where one was actually, as he points out, taken out, and he didn't care about that at all, along with her husband and dog. But he'd be concerned about people dying as long as it's just him. I just want to reset for you guys who this guy really is. But he wants to take out Thomas Massie. And actually, I'm going to show you why he wants to take out Thomas Massie. Because Thomas Massie, at this point, was a complete lapdog for Donald Trump before, but it's going hardcore on this particular issue of releasing these Epstein files. So, of course, Donald Trump, who's all over the files, is mad about it. This is what Thomas Massie continues to say, even after those victims spoke out with them.
I care most about the policy here, not the politics of it. But politically, it's really bad for Republicans. They should just have this vote and put it behind them. 80% of Republicans, it's not just independents and Democrats who want these files released. 80% of Republicans support releasing these files. So they're at odds with our base right now, and particularly the MAGA base.
He's speaking facts. This is the hard thing about Donald Trump. When he gets all emotional and wants to call people names and all the time, he can't really fight back when Thomas Massie is keeping his composure, just saying this is bad for your party. It's bad politically, since that's all Donald Trump cares about. And also, maybe you want to get to the bottom of these things. It just keeps hitting him in the face, and Donald Trump really can't take it all that much. Matter of fact, one of the things that they said to reveal more of where his heart really is as far as these Epstein files, someone in the administration, I mean, I guess an anonymous person there, said that this White House official told NBC News in an email, wrote it down, helping Thomas Massie and liberal Democrats with their attention seeking, while the DOJ is fully supporting a more comprehensive file release, which we're going to get to, from the Oversight Committee, would be viewed as a very hostile act to the administration. Looking for exactly what Donald Trump ran on is a hostile act to the administration. It actually does make sense, because everything that Donald Trump ran on has become a hostile act to administration that is outside of all the horrific things, all the things that people were fooled by as far as job creation, making America safer again and all that stuff, healthy again, all those things that he said he was running on that he's actually reneged on and he's doing the exact opposite towards. Those are very hostile acts towards the administration, because the administration never cared about those things. I feel like the people with Trump derangement syndrome kept telling people that that's exactly what it was. But back to Thomas Massie, because he also responded to that declaration that it's a very hostile act.
I'm pretty sure. I mean, it's a strong effort from the White House. They are literally calling it a hostile act to sign this discharge petition now. And I don't know if that's precedented in this country to have a president call legislators to say that they're engaged in a hostile act, particularly when the so-called hostile act is trying to get justice for people who've been victims of sex crimes.
Just keep it in clear, simple terms. The hostile act is actually trying to advocate for people from decades of severe sex trafficking violations, people who were trafficked, people who were victims and are now survivors. And it's a hostile act to want to get justice for them. It really should leave no one left that supports this guy. It's hostile to go after child sex traffickers, even though he ran on it. Someone needs to start making it make sense. Even Marjorie Taylor Greene, which we're going to get to more details about her, she had a response to the very hostile act comments that were coming around. Here's what she had to say.
Oh, I got a lot of pushback. I got phone call after phone call last night. You know, they didn't want me to sign the discharge petition. They want to focus on the oversight investigation. They hate Thomas Massie more than they can hate any Democrat, which makes no sense to me. And they don't want to work with Democrats at all. Today he called it a hoax, while these women were speaking out and they were saying, we're not a hoax, we're human beings. And I think we need to see something turn around there.
You know,
and I'll say this, Eric.
He can prove it's a hoax by releasing it. Let us decide if it's a hoax or not. I mean, I love everything they're doing. I'm MAGA through and through.
It's not a hoax because Jeffrey Epstein is a convicted pedophile. that takes away the whole hoax things. It's not a hoax. It's not a lie. And on that note, Eric, every Republican should be able to sign on to this. And that's the real hoax, that they're afraid to sign on to it.
Why is every Republican that's not signing on to this afraid to sign on to it? Marjorie Taylor Greene is towing some lines, and we're going to get to more details, as I mentioned a second ago, about why and how she's towing these lines. But she has things to say about the White House official that called it a hostile act. She has something to say to Republicans who are calling it a hoax. Weird. There's this one Republican who's, the president, and he's the one who called it a hoax. And it's not the first time. Dude's called it a hoax 5, 6, 7 times. Matter of fact, it's like a recited line. Someone asked him, so what do you think about the victims that are outside talking about what it is they went through and what it is that they would like to have done in order to get them some justice? He paused and went, what I want to say is that it's a hoax. Bro, whatever health issue he went in over the long weekend, it hasn't kicked back in for him to go back to his normal lying repetition, but he just went back to that talking point like a 4-year-old. But still, Marjorie Taylor Greene was against this whole thing, talking about how it's a hoax. I wonder if she's going to call out the Speaker of the House, who's carrying the water for Donald Trump, who has this as their argument. We're hearing what Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna and the rest of those victims were saying they want. They want the Epstein files released. They just need two more Republicans to sign on. But instead, used car salesman Mike Johnson had this as his solution. And again, it's nothing new. It's the same lie they've been telling. See if you can figure it out.
I think the oversight probe is going to be wide and expansive, and they're going to follow the truth wherever it leads. That's why the discharge petition has been made moot and unnecessary, because you got to remember that the oversight committee's investigation is already ongoing. They're already producing and putting out there the documents that are uncovered. The White House is in full compliance. The administration is willfully complying with the subpoenas because they want maximum transparency as well. I talked to the president himself last night about this. He said, get it out there, put it all out there. So this is going to be an ongoing effort. It will be bipartisan, which is great. And the oversight committee's effort, this is really important to point out, goes further than the discharge petition. It requests more information than the discharge even encompasses. For example, the Epstein estate documents, which is a treasure trove of information, not referenced in the discharge. It goes further, and it has the force of law because we have subpoena authorities that's already being complied with. So it makes the discharge irrelevant and unnecessary. And what it does is it makes the rule vote really, really important, because everybody who wants disclosure, full and maximum transparency and disclosure of Epstein, has a vote today to be able to affirm this. And I think they're going to uncover things that have never been uncovered before. One of the things that came out of the meeting that we had yesterday with the 6 victims that told the most horrific stories. We also had 4 of their lawyers there. 2 of these lawyers have been working on this for 20 years. That's when the civil litigation began. They know where everything is, right?
He's a liar. Mike Johnson is a pathological liar. He has sold his soul. I don't think he ever had one. As soon as he got into this position of power, he called himself Moses. He had a whole story about how he's Moses because he was trying to exalt himself as this figure that's above any kind of criticism and who is so moral that you cannot question his used car sleaziness every time that he talks. But that's why I zoomed in on his face when he was talking about the victims. And I listened to the stories of those victims. It was so horrible. And then went right back into his lying again. It's such an act. He's not even a good actor. The way that he had this, like, it was such a horrible experience. God, he's a fucking liar. So him call himself this Christian who leads people and everything that he thinks about is by the Bible. The way that he goes about legislating is by the Bible, and everything is moral in his mind. He's ignoring these victims who said, what you're doing does nothing. And in case you just think they don't know how things work, that same pain in the ass to Donald Trump, Thomas Massie, gave the details as to why, going with the House Oversight's approach to investigating this, which is very thin and empty, has nothing on the full Epstein file release. Mike Johnson said that that Trump wants maximum transparency. Last I checked, maximum means, as much as possible. So why would you limit what comes out? Do your oversight committee investigation and release the files. How about that for maximum transparency? Here's more. I'm sorry. This is what Thomas Massie said in response to that bullshit.
What people are waking up and discovering right now is the folks who stayed up all night to go through the 34,000 individual pages have found that they're so redacted as to be useless, and that many of them were already available.
Do you think this oversight tactic is releasing these documents? I mean, how do you actually read it? Clearly, they're pushing for more transparency, but it seems like it's not enough for you.
Well, I appreciate the effort that they've undertaken, but the scope of their investigation is to investigate the investigators. Like, they don't ever intend to have any criminal referrals. There may be some notations from the oversight committee when this is done that, oh, this FBI person didn't check this box, or this person acted unethically, or this person got too light of a sentence. But they're not going in and trying to identify who these perpetrators were of these heinous sexual abuse crimes.
The one thing they're covering up are the people who are the perpetrators. They're going to do all the window dressing. They've been doing it for this whole time he's been in office. All the window dressing. We've released everything. And then people look at it and go, there's so much more. What are you talking about? Well, we released even more of everything. And they fight it every step of the way. The one thing they're looking to cover up are the names and the people that were involved with it. It's a huge child sex trafficking ring, but nobody was involved with it. Here's Randy Fine. He's towing that same line that Mike Johnson was towing, because again, Mike Johnson is a demon.
For Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie solution?
I will not.
Why is that?
Because I don't think it's necessary. I think the bill that we're going to pass today has much more transparency. It requires a lot more depositions. It requires us to work with the Epstein estate and do depositions of lots of things. If you're committed to transparency, which I am, you'll support the speaker's bill that we're going to pass today on the floor.
Proponents, including survivors of Jeffrey Epstein themselves, are against this. They call it a placebo. They say it's not enough. What do you say to that?
They should call my office. I'm happy to talk to them.
Okay, so you're saying the survivors are wrong?
I haven't spoken to any survivors that have told me that.
Why didn't you speak to them today?
No, not as far as I know, not asked for me.
There were 10 right outside. Why didn't you speak with them? Did you not have time for them?
Randy Fine doesn't care about the survivors. Randy Fine says they should talk to me. I think there's a 90% chance that those survivors, if they haven't talked to him before that, have called his office since. And he goes, they haven't talked to me. I told my assistant to not put them through. I don't know why they haven't talked to me. They just haven't. So again, here's that pain in the ass. Thomas Massie, which Donald Trump said needs to be taken out. This is the reason why it needs to be taken out. In case anyone was fooled by Randy Fine, he had a response to him too. The guy is kind of on fire as far as this particular topic goes, because he keeps shaking up and breaking down their extreme lies.
Congressman, I just spoke with your colleague, Representative Randy Fine, and he was telling me that, in fact, the leadership-backed bill is more in line with transparency. And if members support transparency, they would vote for that bill rather than yours.
He hasn't even read it. The leadership resolution, it's not a genuine effort, and it also uses the word encourage. It doesn't say that they have to release things on time. It encourages them to release the materials and to release them on time. We're voting on a resolution that the speaker put on the floor that does nothing. They're hiding it inside of another piece of legislation that Democrats will vote against. Then they will use that vote as a political football and say that every Republican voted for transparency and every Democrat voted against it. It's just a swampy thing to do.
He's calling out their game as they do it, because Thomas Massie is a MAGA Republican. Donald Trump, off the top, he said that everybody he endorses wins. There was a point when Donald Trump was endorsing Thomas Massie. On this issue, Thomas Massie has decided to distance himself from Trump, and also on, I think, the bill as well that's, taking all of our resources and giving it to the richest. So Thomas Massie's had a couple issues that he's distanced himself on. So suddenly he is public enemy number one. As they do what Thomas Massie just said they're going to do, they can no longer give it as some kind of excuse and be like, look what the Democrats have done. He told them what they're going to do before they do it, because he's probably been a part of doing things like that. This is why it's important when someone who knows the game and that they used to trust now is telling the game, because he actually cares about this issue. Maybe he heard some of those stories that Mike Johnson faked like he gave a damn about when he went, oh my God, those horrible stories. But anyway, we don't need any of that stuff anymore. I told you guys I was going to get back to Marjorie Taylor Greene. Marjorie Taylor Greene was one of the few people that have signed on. Good job. I believe the other Republicans there, it's also Lauren Boebert, and we saw Thomas Massie consistently. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Ro Khanna was out there. But there's like 3 or 4 of these Republicans. The other ones that are signing on, they didn't want to name yet because they know they'll be targeted by the guy in the White House who's trying to protect all these pedophile friends of his, as well as potentially himself. So Marjorie Taylor Greene was talking about how bad this is. Remember, she was so upset about someone calling it a hoax, and also how that unnamed White House official said that they're coming after the administration and that's a hostile act. I want you guys to listen. Marjorie Taylor Greene talks about Donald Trump, because in every time that she's crossed these lines against Donald Trump, there's always this kind voice that kicks in. There's always this explanation that he has nothing to do with it.
Trump obviously would like this to go away for whatever reason. I don't know why. I don't know why we were promised the whole Epstein list fully, and now we're getting dribs and drabs, highly redacted stuff and stuff we've already seen before as sort of a placation. I don't know why. I don't speculate.
I'm not blaming President Trump whatsoever. I'm actually blaming some of his staff around him. Eric, you and I both know any president is insulated and in a cone of information based on the people that work directly with him. And I don't think they've informed him on what a big deal this really is. And I told the president this morning, I want to see him bring these women into the Oval Office, and I want him to be the hero and champion of this issue. And I want him to fight for these women because I know him to be a fighter. And when he fights for something, for an issue, and he fights for people, especially innocent victims of Jeffrey Epstein, then he beats everybody. And I really want to see President Trump do that, and I hope he changes his mind. Somebody who is a real coward from one of the Trump admin officials came out and called this a hostile act against the Trump administration. I take very big offense to that because I put my life and my fortune on the line fighting to get that man elected. And whoever said that has their job, because of people like me that fought all the horrible Republicans that stabbed him in the back after January 6th. And I was one of those that fought on the front lines and said, no, he is the leader of our party. He is the president, and we're going to make him president again. Well, that coward attacked me and attacked anybody else and called it a hostile act. The hostile act was Jeffrey Epstein raping 14-year-old girls. That was the hostile act, and it's not a hoax.
Donald Trump, the president of the United States, the guy that says he's going to centralize all power under him, the guy that said, I can do whatever I want. He just said that like a week or two ago. I can do what I want. I'm sending military into the streets, into different cities. I'm taking over and federalizing police forces. I'm imposing tariffs all across the world unlawfully. I'm doing everything that I want. That president hasn't been informed well enough by his staff of how important the Epstein files are. That's what Marjorie Taylor Greene said. She's not blaming Trump. That was the first thing. I mean, I don't want to blame Trump. I'm not blaming Trump. I'm not blaming the guy who says he has all and complete authority over this country. I'm not blaming him for his Department of Justice, his Pam Bondi, who is in complete control of his moves. He's in complete control of her moves. He's not going to blame him for not doing anything about this. She's not going to blame him for when he said, when are you guys going to stop talking about this Epstein thing? She's not going to blame him when he said this whole thing is a hoax after these survivors came out and said, yo, it's not a hoax. We're real people. We're standing right here. How is it possible that you can't blame the guy that's controlling everything? But she put her fortune on the line to get him elected. But it's those cowards and those dirty dealers that are surrounding Donald Trump that are keeping him away from all information that's going to make him not do anything about it. Has nothing to do with him. I'm telling you, bro. Y'all can try to start giving Marjorie Taylor Greene some credit, but she has not crossed Donald Trump. She's being very careful to not cross just that guy. Those cowards attacked her and said that it's a hostile act. Against who? I'm not even done with her. She also talked to Manu Raju right after they had their whole press conference with these survivors. She talked to him and he asked her what it is that she said to Donald Trump, because she brought it up. Listen, she said, I talked to Donald Trump. Listen to how she talks about how she talked to Donald Trump.
I look forward to talking with President Trump about these women that I've met. I also encouraged him already this morning that he should have these women in the Oval Office. They deserve to be there.
You spoke to him?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
And I told him I'd be happy to set that up, arranging with their attorney by sharing his phone number.
What was his reaction to that?
I haven't got an answer back on that, but I am continuing to encourage him that these are the people that deserve to be in the Oval Office, not any of Jeffrey Epstein's rich, powerful friends.
You hear that bullshit? Marjorie Taylor Greene said that she spoke to Donald Trump that morning. She spoke to him and she said, you should bring in these survivors and you could be a hero and all that stuff. Manu Raju asked her a great follow-up question. What did he say? Her answer was that she hasn't gotten an answer yet. If you spoke to Donald Trump, I mean, speaking, it could have been on the phone, but speaking, not a letter, not an email, not something through some spokespeople. She said she spoke to Donald Trump. So when she said you should get these folks in here and then she hasn't got an answer yet, the next follow-up question should have been, well, if you spoke to him and you haven't got an answer yet, what did he say? I haven't got an answer yet. That means that you maybe put in a request at best through some channels and didn't speak to the president. But you're telling everyone else, I spoke to Donald Trump because he's about to be a hero and listen to everything that I say, because she's trying to prop him up and to be in this position to be a good guy when he's the one who's doing the whole thing to cover this shit up. And the last question is, why is it that Marjorie Taylor Greene won't cross Donald Trump? But she's on the right side on everything else when it comes to this story, right? She's on the right side when it comes to calling Gaza a genocide, but she won't say who's part of committing that genocide. Weird. She won't point out that the guy in that area where they're trying to clear out as many Palestinian innocent women, children, and men as possible so they can create their beachfront property hasn't said yet, this guy in the White House wants to kill all these people in this genocide. She won't say it. She'll say everyone else is doing it except for this guy. It keeps people that are confused about who the president is, like one of these survivors of Jeffrey Epstein, to ask this very simple question. This woman is a Trump supporter, voted for him, and she can't figure out why he's doing what he's doing.
I have to ask you about someone who wasn't supportive today, and that is Donald Trump in the Oval Office calling what was happening in your discussion the Epstein hoax. He repeatedly called it a Democratic hoax, even though you were accompanied by Republican members of the House as you were standing there. How did you feel about that when you heard that word applied to what was happening there?
So I'm going to go off of my survivor sister, Haley Robertson, and I voted for him. I voted for Trump. And for him to say what he's saying, it is beyond me, because I put my hope in him and he's supposed to protect us. And for him to say that this is a joke and that it's sides, this is not sides. We will say it time and time again. None of us are up there accusing him of anything. There is no one that is accusing him of any wrongdoing. So for the fact that he is saying those things and saying it's a hoax, who are you hiding for then? Because if it's not you, then who is it? And that scares me. Who is it?
Who is it? She's not accusing him of anything. She voted for him. What's wrong? What is he hiding? Who is he hiding it for? We'll see if Marjorie Taylor Greene wants to keep asking those questions, because one of the strong speeches that she had was how if these survivors behind me are too afraid because of their lives being threatened and then being stalked and followed for all these years, I have the power. I'll take the list to the House floor and I'll read these names. She said it, bro, but she won't say one name. I'm just saying. We should just listen to the way people speak rather than taking it in for what they think they want us to believe about them. Take them for their word. Her word is nothing about the guy who's covering it up. Okay. Let's go to this next story, guys. There's so much. I can't believe I took a half an hour on that. By the way, so you guys want to plan ahead, if you guys are planners, I'm going to go over this hour. I'm going to talk a lot today. I over-prepared. But it's because I want to get to all this stuff. Sorry. And I want to get to the details and really break down the way these things will work and the things that people say. There's tons happening here. Let's go to the Trump economy now. I like come back this probably like once a week to make sure we get an update on how things are happening. And since it's just the beginning of September, I want to give you guys, an update of how things are going. We'll get to that in a second. But first, I want you guys to hear what Donald Trump said, how he said things are going, because things are great. Watch this.
I was very happy that today, as you saw, the group that does this, a government group, radical left group, announced that Trump was right, took in $4 trillion worth of tariffs. That the $4 trillion are going to reduce the deficit by numbers far greater than they ever expected or heard of. And by the way, the stock market went up 1,000 points. That was as of 10 minutes ago. I can't tell you what happened. A lot of things happened. But the stock market's up almost 1,000 points. And it's basically on the news that the release that just came out from government that the tariffs that everybody was talking about, that the whole world respects us for because of what we did. The tariffs are going to be at $4 trillion. They're going to reduce the deficit by $4 trillion, Mr. Vice President.
Pretty good, sir.
Too bad it's not 5, right?
That's right.
It's had a huge impact, and the stock market is way up. But this will drive more than.
Donald Trump talked about how $4 trillion worth of tariffs have come in. He's been talking about it so much. Matter of fact, I think the latest number he gave was $17 trillion. It's weird. It's like the number keeps jumping wildly from one thing to the next. Trillions of dollars. Matter of fact, he's always talking about how many trillions or maybe sometimes billions of dollars that this comes in. Here's more.
Government. Our country is doing great. I think we are doing probably, maybe in many ways, better than we've ever done before. We're taking in trillions, not billions, trillions and trillions of dollars from other countries who for years took advantage of us. They took advantage of the United States like we were children, and that's not happening anymore. Now they're paying a lot of money, and they're paying hundreds of billions of dollars. Individual countries paying hundreds of billions of dollars. You're seeing what everybody else is seeing. And we have a lot of things we can do. One of the questions asked of me this morning is, are you going to make a dividend to the people? And the purpose of what I'm doing is primarily to pay down debt, which will happen in very large quantity. But I think there's also a possibility that we're taking in so much money that we may very well make a dividend to the people of America. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Don't hold your breath waiting for that dividend, or also paying down that debt. I guarantee he doesn't even know what the debt is, but he said we're going to pay down in large amounts, just some large amounts, just those numbers that are in my head that I'm making up as I go along, because it went from trillions, 4 trillions to like 17 trillion to billions and billions. And then this one, Batya Ungar Sargon, who sometimes jumps on CNN to be the best Scott Jennings that she could be, she also pushed these numbers as well too. See if you can find some kind of relation to any of these numbers.
Into effect. I want to make one point. When there was greedflation after the pandemic, when corporations realized they could get away with raising prices on the American consumer, I was infuriated by that. What Donald Trump has managed to do is bring in $110 billion in tariff revenue, and consumer prices are up by less than 1%. It's coming from those same greedy corporations. He has forced them to eat it. Now, Abby, you're saying they haven't passed it on yet.
Listen,
okay, but can we just give him the credit now
I think that
for
makes
having
sense.
done
I think that we
that?
should just
This is a
acknowledge. Let's
huge
just.
deal.
I just want to underscore what you're saying.
He's bringing in hundreds of billions of dollars, or is it 4 trillion, or is it 17 trillion, or who's paying for it? But the prices keep going up. It kind of doesn't matter to all of us consumers who are just paying for this stuff. Who's taking it in? The pockets of all these big corporations who are also saying that they're suffering and losing money too because of the slowdown, which we'll get into a second, the slowdown of goods also coming in. Because again, people are starting to find ways to circumvent us. To avoid these annoying things. And which one of the trade deals announces these kinds of numbers? None of the trade deals have been signed. They just announce things, put it on Truth Social, and say that they're making tons of money. Bro, this is so far disjointed from any kind of accountability and being able to understand where they're getting these numbers from and how much they say they're making. Because even if they're making the 17 trillion, 4 trillion, 110 billion, actually, this is from 2 days ago. Maybe it's $8 trillion because that's what he's got posted with him standing in front of, sitting at this table signing this stupid ass executive order. $8 trillion in tariff revenue, hundreds of thousands of new jobs. Which one is it, bro? I'm trying to figure which one is it. Is it 4, 17, 110, or is it 8 trillion? Which one is it? They don't care. In fact, they don't think you care. They don't think you're thinking. They just think you hear trillion. Oh man, bringing in trillions of dollars, man. Maybe we'll get some money back. Maybe we'll pay down that debt and deficit. Maybe these rich oligarchs that paid $1 million each on his cheap ass to get him into office, maybe each of them is going to make all this money. Maybe it's them. And while they're making all that money, here's a dose of reality for what's happening for everyone else.
Just in, new data painting an increasingly worrisome picture for the U.S. jobs market. For the first time in years, job seekers are outnumbering job openings. CNN's Vanessa Yurkevich is following this story for us. What are you seeing here, Vanessa?
Yeah, this is a JOLTS report that we get every single month, and it precedes oftentimes the jobs report that we'll get later in the week. But this JOLTS report essentially revealed that there are fewer jobs available than those that are looking for those jobs. So in the month of July, it reveals that there are 7.18 million jobs open, and there are 7.2 million people who are unemployed looking for a job. So a little less than one job per person. And what this really signals is that there is starting to be a softening in the labor market, which very much starts to back up what we saw in July's jobs report, which showed a weakening of hiring, just 73,000 jobs added in the month of July, which led to President Donald Trump firing the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which puts out that monthly report. Now, this report should be taken sort of as a brushstroke in a painting of what we're looking at in the U.S. economy. But where job openings are versus where they are not comes across a multitude of sectors. So healthcare and social assistance, fewer jobs there by 181,000. Retail and trade, also fewer job openings in that sector by 110,000. Mining and lodging, fewer jobs by 13,000. And then you can see there are pickups in construction, manufacturing, and wholesale. As I mentioned, Brianna, this report, this JOLTS report, is just before the big jobs report on Friday, which will tell us just how many jobs were added in the month of August. Brianna.
You know, she had to go off of the July Bureau of Labor Statistics jobs reports because this asshole fired the commissioner of that and said that it was all her fault, whatever. But this is the first time, it's the worst, the first time this has happened since April of 2021, where there's more job seekers than there are job openings. But, you know, we've got this golden era happening. We've got $17.48 trillion coming in from these tariffs that are all going to whatever amount is going to Donald Trump and his buddies' pockets, while we again are feeling the effect. It went from the consumer confidence to amount of money that we're paying in goods, to now the job market. It's beginning to soften, they say. You know what else is getting soft? Rural America. It's suffering its economic crisis as crop prices plunge. Quote from Fortune magazine: U.S. soybean farmers cannot survive a prolonged trade dispute. Sad thing is this prolonged trade dispute started on April 2nd when he started this trade dispute when no one asked for it. Just him saying that tariffs are going to do everything for our country. And now that it hurts more people that he keeps saying are doing great, I wonder at what point they're going to finally admit that it's all bullshit. Just I wonder. This is from this morning. Maybe you don't believe CNN. How about CNBC? You know, there's these business and smart economic guys on there all the time that Trump likes to quote.
ADP payroll report. Steve Leisman's here.
54,000. ADP, the private payroll company, estimating that private payrolls around the country rose by 54,000. That is against an estimate of 75,000. So a little bit under. Good sector, 13. Interesting number there. Services, 42. Not so strong. And there's the non-farm payroll estimate, 75 for both government and the private sector for Fridays. And I really just want to go right to the education and health services, which is, by our estimate, the 5th month in a row we've seen this decline. That had been a perennial stalwart source of job growth, not anymore. And there's trade, transportation, and utilities down 17. I'm interested in that because the tariffs might be reducing some of the goods flow, and we'll see what happens, whether or not that leads to layoffs in that sector. Yesterday's Beige Book was a real eye-opener for me. Really a weak report. It wasn't quite the report we've seen ahead of recessions, but it was spoke of an economy that's really at stall speed right now. There was no hiring going on, no growth, very limited consumer spending. And then the Challenger report this morning, layoffs up 39%, adding pharmaceuticals and finance to the sectors that we're seeing layoffs. So
Steve, have you seen it?
I ended up with more concern about the economy after yesterday's data and this morning's challenge.
Is there anything to notion that
the falling participation rate is masking a much higher unemployment? Yes, it could.
It's getting pretty bad. The stalwart industries, like in education, health services, that always are growing, they're stagnant. All the areas where they figure things naturally and normally always grow because it happens that way, they're not. The expectations for amount of jobs added under every month. Even places they said pharma and in finance, stagnation. He even mentioned these are some signs of, I don't want to say the word recession. I'm just saying it kind of seems like this seems a little recession-y. I can't figure out what it is that could possibly be going wrong with actual real life numbers versus him still spouting off 4 trillion, 17 trillion, 8 trillion, 110 billion. Who knows? Who gives a fuck? Let me just say anything that's going to get me out of this chair, and then I can go back to truth socialing about how wonderful things are. Then I can go off and golf and then disappear for 5 or 6 days from everyone in the country, you know, and we can talk about the speculation of why he was gone later. But I want to show you guys one more thing. Just one more thing. I think we've seen this picture. Lies about the numbers that are coming in for whatever reason. Lies about job numbers when we see the reality. Lies about prices of things. Lies about consumer confidence. But there's one thing that's really growing. And I feel like when he's talking about golden age, it's weird. It's odd because it may only apply to, you know, him.
The Trump family just launched a brand new cryptocurrency. It is called WLFI. Lauren, how much has the Trump family itself accumulated of this? How much?
Yeah, for World Liberty Financial, and the Wall Street Journal says it's $5 billion. So this coin, WLFI, is currently the 33rd largest coin by market cap, about $6 billion worth, according to CoinGecko. The family holds about a quarter of the tokens out there. They can't sell them, but now that the token has launched on the public markets, we have a valuation for it. The Wall Street Journal says this token is the family's most valuable asset, exceeding their property portfolio.
But they can't sell those tokens. Can't do it.
No.
Not yet.
Not yet. Correct. Not yet.
My goodness me. $5 billion.
eye-popping numbers. He
Yeah.
is the crypto president, the first one ever. A lot of crypto-friendly legislation, regulation.
What it
coming
amounts
out.
to is it's crypto-friendly legislation coming from the president of the United States, who is in turn cashing in on the crypto phase, personally, his family.
Conflict of interest. They say no, but that's how it appears.
That's true.
$5 billion. That was Fox Business. That was Stuart Varney. Conflict of interest was mentioned. Cashing in on crypto. Golden age for Donald Trump and his buddies, specifically his family. But in the meantime, jobs are down. Consumer confidence is down. Tariffs are costing small businesses and large businesses all kinds of money. They're raising their prices. Walmart said they're raising prices. You know, that low-cost leader. But Donald Trump and his family made $5 billion. I mean, once they finally cash in on their crypto scam that they're using the country to, again, extract more resources from us for them. Just in case you wonder what the golden age actually is. I got one last story, and I got 14 minutes. Maybe I won't go over, but I probably will, but only about like 5 minutes if I do. Sorry, someone keeps texting me. I did want to say one thing. I did see Green Goat 79 in the chat. What's up, Green Goat? Good to see you. I see that you hadn't seen that we're doing the live show here. I'm not sure how far back you were asking about. We did do a live show started in 2022. I can't even think of years anymore. We did the live show, had producers and everything. We did it on standard. Came in right before the damage report all the time. Then we switched up. Formats. Went to this more VOD form, and I got tired of that. So I just decided to start jumping on every morning for an hour and plan it, shoot it, record it, talk to you guys, have another live show. I'm decided to go ahead and do it this way, and I enjoy it so much more because I get a chance to connect with you guys in ways that I've really enjoyed when we did it before. So we do it every day at noon. For anyone else that's still just now figuring it out or seeing it, because I'm not sure how many notifications go out. Noon every day Eastern. We do it for an hour at least, sometimes an hour and a half, or sometimes 2.5 hours like yesterday. You never know. I like to lead into the damage report like we used to because that was always a fun handoff. So good to see you, Green Goat. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate anyone else that's just now seeing it. If you guys just found out, tell some of the folks, like I always tell you, like the stream right now. That boosts it a little bit more. Share the stream. That boosts it even more than that, in case you didn't know. And actually, if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe and let people know. I'm sorry, and hit the bell. I think there's a ringing bell on the top to let you guys know when we're doing it, even though many folks who did that still don't get notified. Sucks. Let's go to this last story, though. I talk a lot about all the things that Donald Trump's doing that people aren't seeing. This is something that he's doing that I don't think people are seeing, but it's not very good for him. As a matter of fact, it's the reason why he was fuming at this reporter asking him about it. Watch. Come on.
March today in California ruled that your deployment of National Guard troops to Los Angeles was illegal. Do you have any response?
Well, it was a radical left judge, but very importantly, what did you not tell me in that question or statement that you made pretty much of a statement, I think?
Well, I was asking for your response.
No, you didn't say what the judge said, though. The judge said, but you can leave the 300 people that you already have in place. They can continue to be in place. That's all we need. But why didn't you put that as part of your statement? Because the same judge ruled exactly as you said, except the judge said that you can leave the 300 people that you already have in place. They can stay, they can remain, they can do what they have to do. Thank you very much, everybody. We appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Donald Trump didn't like that question. Maybe because he's a fucking loser. Maybe because he lost a court ruling about what he thought was a legal rule to send the National Guard into whatever damn city that he wants, specifically cities that are run by mayors and states that are run by governors that he just doesn't like, because, he's one of those presidents that thinks he can just be a fascist and no one will do anything about it. As a matter of fact, one of those governors of that state that he invaded and was later told that he's doing it illegally, Gavin Newsom, who's been trolling the hell out of this guy, said Donald Trump loses again in all capitals. The courts agree. His militarization of our streets and use of the military against U.S. citizens is illegal. Weird how that works. Americans used to know that. But, now too many of them are like, Donald Trump can do whatever the hell he wants because I kiss his ass. More. Here's something else. That's one L. Let's start counting the L's that Donald Trump has been racking up lately. That's L number one. You guys want to hear about L number two? Here's L number two. It's from Aaron Reichlin Melnick. He posts a lot about these illegal issues that Donald Trump is going through. Here's the latest. A new federal court just ruled that Trump's invasion proclamation banning asylum at the border is unlawful. Judge Moss vacates agency guidance implementing the proclamation, issues declaratory relief that the order is unlawful and enjoins its implementation. Remember that whole invasion talk? Whole talk about how we're being invaded by all these brown people because they're scary, and therefore he can do whatever he wants as far as his mass deportation policies. That was ruled unlawful as well too. Here's one more post from Aaron Reichlin Melnick talking about what is the judge was ruling against him about. A Trump day one executive order invoked the travel ban authority in the Constitution to declare that an invasion was happening and that all migrants must be turned away without being permitted to seek asylum under the laws. These are asylum seekers, bro. Do you remember when he was running for office and he said he's going after all the violent drug addicts and criminals and drug dealers and human traffickers, as long as their names are not Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell? He said Judge Moss here rules that this was not a lawful act. L number two. You guys want to hear about some more L's? Hey, here's another L. A federal appeals court shot down President Trump's claim that Venezuelan cartels have invaded the U.S., denying the administration's bid to assume sweeping wartime deportation powers under the Alien Enemies Act. This was one of the first ones he went after. In a 2-1 ruling, the Fifth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals held on Tuesday that Trump cannot use the 1978, cannot use the 1798 law to deport Venezuelans in Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. So now he's losing on the Alien Enemies Act declaration that he made. More about invasions and all those scary brown people. Here's some more quotes. In his invocation, Trump wrote that even though the U.S. is not at war with Venezuela, members of the Tren de Aragua gang have invaded the U.S. at the behest of President Nicolas Maduro, a claim that the CIA and National Security Agency have flatly denied. But he doesn't give a fuck. He just does whatever he wants and says invasion, scary, migrants, more. Similarly, the judges assumed that the gang had indeed used drug trafficking as a weapon against our citizens. The judges agreed with him. But again, attempts to weaken a country are not the same as an invasion, is what Judge Leslie Southwick wrote. And she was appointed by, this lib, George W. Bush. Last one about his L on the Venezuelan Alien Enemies Act. This is the last part of that L. We conclude that the findings do not support that an invasion or predatory incursion has occurred. We therefore conclude that petitioners are likely to prove that the AEA was improperly invoked. Are we counting? I think that's L number 3. I think the Alien Enemies Act. You guys want to hear another L? Here's more L's for Donald Trump. This is why he's so pissed. Maybe that's why he had that heart attack over that weekend. A federal judge ruled Wednesday that the Trump administration violated Harvard University's First Amendment rights and federal law when it froze nearly $2 billion in federal grants because of the Ivy League school's handling of anti-Semitism on campus. In a victory for Harvard, U.S. District Judge Allison Burroughs blocked Trump's administration officials from implementing or instituting orders freezing the grant funding to Harvard and letters terminating research grants awarded by a slew of federal agencies. Here's L number 4. He's losing on freezing the grants and the federal funding to Harvard because he was mad at them too, because that lib institution actually teaches people things sometimes. You want more details on this L? Here's more details on this L. Quote, in fact, a review of the administrative record makes it difficult to conclude anything other than that defendants, that's the Trump administration, used anti-Semitism as a smokescreen for a targeted, ideologically motivated assault on this country's premier universities, and did so in a way that runs afoul of the APA, the First Amendment, and Title VI, is what Burroughs wrote. Further, their actions have jeopardized decades of research and the welfare of all those who could stand to benefit from that research, as well as reflect a disregard for the rights protected by the Constitution and federal statutes. This was talked about during this whole thing when he was trying to pull this off. There's lots of research, medical research and disease research, things that happen at many universities that are funded from federal grants, because, you know, that helps with that whole thing that RFK Jr. doesn't want happening anymore, is that people living here in this country and us understanding how we can fight back against sometimes these things that kill us. But he just wanted to reject that funding because he doesn't like them. And he wanted to piggyback off of anti-Semitism, even as if he's not an anti-Semite. More, here's more of this L. I'm actually enjoying this L. This one's a good one. In her ruling, Burroughs called the Trump administration's actions part of a government-initiated onslaught against the school that was much more about promoting a governmental orthodoxy in violation of the First Amendment than about anything else, including fighting anti-Semitism. Man, he was probably red. Went from orange to red when he read all this stuff. They blocked it. Here's one last part about this particular loss that he took. There's a boot up his ass. Burroughs said that none of the letters the Trump administration sent to Harvard identified any specific instance of anti-Semitism on Harvard's campus, specified how Harvard failed to respond to any such acts of anti-Semitism in any way that violated Title VI or reflected any effort to follow the Title VI procedural requirements that govern the termination of federal funding. Shit, I lost track. Is that L number 5 or was that 4? I think it's 5. All kinds of L's flying around for this idiot, because what he thinks is that he can say and do anything he wants. He can create a reality and everyone will just listen to him. And the people that don't listen to him, he'll take their federal funding. And the other people that don't listen to him, he'll send armed troops into your city. And the other folks that listen to him, he'll have arrested. Whatever it is, he's an authoritarian fascist sumbitch who thinks he can run roughshod over this country. And sadly, there's several million people who agree with that, because they're subservient people too, and they want to live under a ruler. Bro, go start your own country off in Antarctica somewhere and live under that ruler and be happy with him whooping your ass every day and taking anything that you got. But it's not going to happen here. Of course, all these rulers are going to be like, they're going to be appealed. He keeps talking about how he's going to go to the Supreme Court because he keeps talking about how he's already got that court fixed. They knew everything they would be doing would be illegal. That's why they wanted to make sure ahead of time we have the Supreme Court in place that's going to do everything I want them to do. Because when these lower courts rule against me, I'm going to call them libs, even though they're not all appointed by anybody that's lib. They're lib, radical, lunatic judges. Now I'm going to go to my Supreme Court, which he also feels he can control too. Maybe somebody can tell me. How many L's was that? You guys keeping track? I was doing too much reading. I lost track of the L's. Was it 6? Will 73 says there was 6 L's. Maybe. I think it was 6. I thought it was at 5. There's a little bit more of this, but I don't know if I should do more of this. Fuck it. I'm going to do a little bit more of this. That was the L's, but this is his mindset, because I just enjoyed this part of this. This was his mindset. This is the type of things that he says and expects people to believe. Again, this all started with his National Guard sending into Los Angeles. This is related to him now also sending the National Guard and federalizing the DC police force, because these are the lies that he tells to get anything that he wants.
So in 3 weeks, I lost almost 35 people were killed. It could have been stopped. If you look at Washington, D.C., 3 weeks ago, it was the same or worse. And now it's considered a totally safe zone. Restaurants are open. They're bustling. Restaurants, you have to see, Restaurants were dying. Nobody wanted to go out. They didn't want to be attacked. They didn't want to be mugged. They didn't want to be attacked even in the restaurant. And you take a look at what's happened. Friends of mine that haven't gone to a restaurant in 4 years, one of them went out 5 times in the last 2 weeks to a restaurant with his family. So
if only there was like a George W. Bush appointed judge that been sitting there and go like, I'm a rule against that. Because it's lies, it's madness. And if you don't want to believe judges, if you don't want to believe any rulings, if you don't want to believe in the legal system of normalcy in our legal system, all you have to do is maybe be in Washington, D.C. And if you want to wonder about those lies that he told about restaurants and the streets are bustling with happy white people, here's a scene from Washington, D.C. since it's been federalized and turned into a police state.
Is a ghost town.
All you need is a little bit of reality to show you what it is that we're seeing versus what it is that he's saying. Yo, maybe that was just one street. Maybe it was like 4 o'clock in the morning, maybe 3, and no one was out in the streets. And these radical, crazy libs just want to talk about how no one's going out. When in reality, all the good, rich white people were out all night. Here's a chart about DC restaurants and their reservations compared to a year ago. There's this weird thing. You see that? Let me yeah, I can make it a little bigger for you guys. Let me show you. Look. There's this big red line that drops off, and it drops off right around the 9th, 11th of August, straight down. It shows that DC restaurant reservations compared to 2024 have dropped off. But things are booming because Donald Trump said things are booming, when in reality, what he was talking about was the booming that was coming out of his pants into the back of his ass. And what people have to sit next to him and smell. That's the only thing that's booming in Donald Trump's world. I'm going to show you guys these last 2 people who enjoy sitting next to Donald Trump and smelling the boom. One of them is Andy Ogles. And since we're talking about National Guards and sending troops and how great Donald Trump is, Andy Ogles is brown nosing.
Crime-ridden cities, most crime-ridden cities in the country, and he's fixed it. No one said it could be done. And so guess what, Chicago? Guess what, Memphis? Guess what, Nashville? If you don't get your act together, you have a president who's willing to think outside of the box. He's a true leader, and he's had enough of this. And quite frankly, so has the American people. You have people on the streets in Chicago, in Memphis, in Nashville, in Boston saying, Mr. President, please send the guard here. Please make our cities safe again.
That's right.
We are making America safe again. The president is a true leader. And it really is that juxtaposition between Biden, the failed policies of Biden and Obama versus President Trump, which is why I've nominated him for the Nobel Peace Prize, which is why I think he should be eligible for a 3rd term. He's truly the leader at the historic time in our nation and, quite frankly, in our world.
Well, we're out of time, but hang on. So you want him to serve a 3rd term? How are we going to get around the Constitution and everything else?
Well, I have a bill that would amend the Constitution that would allow any president who has served non-consecutive terms to run for a 3rd term. That's only happened twice in history. So President Trump would be the individual who could actually run for a 3rd term because he has not served consecutive terms.
All right. All right. We're going to follow that very closely.
Andy Ogles. Get up, bro. Stand up. It's okay. It's over. He already walked away. You can wipe your face. That's Andy Ogles, who's a congressman who's been pushed that whole thing with Donald Trump because he wants to stay in his good graces as much as possible because he thinks that's a meal ticket because, you know, he's an unaccomplished person who's lied about his entire life. So last thing before we go. And those of you who already took off our damage report, I appreciate you. You can't hear me because you're gone. But those of you who are waiting, this is the last thing. This is the way the Republican Party under Donald Trump is operating. You heard Andy Ogles there, propping him up in any way possible because Donald Trump, as we've seen, is a complete and utter liar. This guy is in his administration. Lee Zeldin. He was asked about green energy. And the theme here, again, is the way that these guys talk about Donald Trump. This just stuck out to me. See if you can find an original thought in Lee Zeldin's brain, or if he's just a fascist follower.
I mean, is the Trump administration for any green initiatives? Will there be any room for any federal funding under this second Trump term?
Well, first off, Congress, we're going to fulfill all of our statutory obligations under the law. And when Congress passes a law, the Trump EPA is going to be following that law. Just like we have a zero tolerance policy for any waste and abuse, we will fulfill all of our statutory obligations.
Are you
President
for it
Trump
personally?
Well, I am for whatever President Trump is advocating for, and President Trump has been very outspoken about his concern with the economics of offshore wind, and he wants to ramp up more baseload power. America needs so much more baseload power than will be delivered with that.
Lee Zeldin is for anything Donald Trump wants. Hey, Lee, Donald Trump wants you to get a new pair of knee pads. Donald Trump wants you to pick those orange hairs out of your teeth and floss with because you've been licking his ass. He has no original thoughts. What are you EPA administrator for? Do you have an original thought? It's weird that Fox anchor was even like, yo, no, I need to know if you think, Lee, do you think, like, do you have something? I mean, whatever it is Donald Trump wants. Isn't that embarrassing, bro? Isn't that does he have a family? Is anybody he goes home to and he's like, did you see me on TV? I said, I don't have any an original thought in my brain. I said, I'm gonna do whatever Donald Trump tells me to do. I say, I don't know what my job is until Donald Trump tells me what my job is. These are un-American people. They don't like this country. They don't like the Constitution. They don't like anyone else that Donald Trump doesn't like. Because go America. Okay, guys. I'm gonna see you guys tomorrow. Tomorrow is a big Friday. You should prepare now. It's a Friday, so we're gonna go into the weekend getting drunk. I'm still gonna have my water though. If I get drunk on this stream, it's not gonna be a good show. So we'll see you guys tomorrow. Prepare for it. All your adult beverages. If you don't do that, I know some of you guys are some, you indulge in other forms. Go ahead and do that as well too. We're gonna have some fun, maybe see some things happening, hopefully some kind of movement on the Epstein situation, some movement on our economy, maybe someone finally figuring out what's going on. But also I heard that RFK Jr. was speaking during this entire hour. It may still be going now. I'm gonna see if anything interesting happened there. Potentially that's what's going on tomorrow. Let's have a good Friday. Appreciate you guys being here. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. If you like what we're doing, these videos, these stories will be up on the watch list channel.